Welcome everyone to the third episode of NXTV. I'm your host and NXT superfan, Jeff James. What a week of wrestling we had last week, and what a setup that we have for next week. So let's just get right into it. This week's episode started with seeing Vic Joseph sitting there, and all of a sudden, who comes out? Stu Bennett, aka Wade Barrett, comes out and he joins them at the announce desk. And let me tell you, I was so excited to see that. We know that guy's got some announcing chops. Ever since he left WWE, he's announcing on Ultimate Beastmaster, on Netflix, things like that. So to see him come back home to the WWE in an announce role, if that's what it takes to get him back on my TV, I'm all for it. I'd love to see him get back in the ring. I'd love to see a match between him and Walter, or something like that. But if all we're going to get is announcing, I'm totally okay with that. It's kind of like Nigel McGuinness being on WWE TV. I would love to see him, but if all we're going to get is announcing, I'm still 100% behind it. We do miss Nigel, but to have Wade be on announcing, it was good to see. So we start off the show with none other than Karrion Kross coming out to the ring. We see him in a sling, and you just knew when he walked out in the suit, with the sling, with the title, you felt like what was about to happen was going to be the worst news that you could see. I was talking last week in episode 2 about how Karrion was going to be our champion for a long time, and he was a destructive force, and we find out he's human. He's injured he's completely separated his shoulder, and he's going to be out for a while. And he has to drop the title. And, my heart broke. I was so excited to see what he was going to do. And to see him, drop the title, it hurt. It hurt a little bit. But to hear the optimism in his voice, knowing that he's coming back and that anybody that stands in his way, you better watch out. And, as soon as he comes back, it's time to get excited, because that he's not going to just let that sit. He hasn't lost. He hasn't lost a match, and he has to lose he has to drop the title. No, he's going to get that back. Speaking of titles, let's get into Breezango winning the NXT Tag Team Championships from Imperium. How awesome was that? And I didn't know. I thought for sure that at least Dongo had won a title before, but neither one of them have ever held gold since they've been in WWE, and they've been here for how long? And for this to be their first gold, and for them to get it together, what a feel-good story that is, right? But, I thought at least at one point Dongo had held the Intercontinental title. His first win in WWE in the main roster was against Chris Jericho. That dude had to have been going places, right? But no, and to have them hold the titles together, knowing how long they've been a team together, and knowing how many attempts that they've made to finally grab that and grab that gold, I don't see him letting go of it anytime soon. It's amazing, and I was happy to see it, and knowing that Imperium is probably getting ready to go back to NXT UK, it felt like it was the right moment. So, congratulations to Tyler Breeze and Fandango. I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds for them. Let's talk about the tag team match with Rhea Ripley and Io Shirai against Dakota and Raquel. I thought that match was good. That match was great. We had a lot of moments there that needed to happen in order to put the kibosh on some rivalries there. And I think there was no other way for that match to end other than the way that it did. I think Mercedes coming down out of nowhere and knocking Rhea on her ass, and then coming in, having Rhea come into the match, knowing that she was there to win that match, but knowing that she wasn't ready, she was still reeling from it, and then to have what Mercedes did cost Rhea the match really just fuels the fire for a feud between Mercedes and Rhea, and I can only imagine that that's inevitable. I would like to see a match between them this upcoming week. They haven't announced it, but that the show this week is already stacked. So if that doesn't happen, I know it's going to happen soon, and we can't sit here and just wait on that. That needs to be resolved. We need to see what's going to happen between those two. I mean, massive forces in the women's division. I mean, they're on a collision course, and it's time for that to just happen. And let's see who's better. Let's talk a little bit again. Like I said last week, NXTV is going to be mainly about NXT, but sometimes we got to talk about the main roster. The main roster. I mean, NXT is the main roster on its own. But anyway, let's talk about Keith Lee losing the title on Saturday and then showing up on Raw on Monday. And I mean, we've got to address it. I don't want to. Keith's already addressed it, but let's talk about that ring gear and the new music. It was a little weird to see. We know that he said that he has no control over it, but that to just wait it out. I can only imagine that what they're trying to do is get away from the music that CFO $sign did, and get him some new music from Def Rebel. So let's just hold off on judging so soon. I know that music was iconic. It was epic. It was done, voiced by him. Let's just only imagine that once Def Rebel's able to record a new song for him, that it's going to be just as good. And let's put off on taking away from what happened and just complaining about this. We don't need to. And as far as the gear goes, maybe he's getting new gear made. So he left NXT fairly quickly and made his debut on the main roster fairly quickly. He probably just put together what he had. Let's stop taking away from the fact that his first feud is with Randy Orton. Randy Orton. So, I mean, this is great. This is great. He steps out of NXT as the top dog, as the guy that held 2 titles at one time, and comes right in and gets into a feud with one of the best in the business ever. He has a match on the very first pay-per-view that he's around for. He has a top tier match on the very first pay-per-view that he's around for against Randy Orton. I know I'm harping on this, but this is Randy Orton. And he's coming in and he's got a match against Randy Orton. So let's stop worrying about this nonsense that doesn't make any difference, because I don't care what he's wearing. He could come out there wearing a tutu. I don't care what his music is. He could be coming out to Fly to the Bumblebee. Who cares? Keith Lee has a match with Randy Orton at the pay-per-view. He wasted no time. He scooped right off the top. He got his prize from that cereal box in his first bowl. So let's focus on that. Let's go into this week's episode of NXT. They have announced a killer show. It is stacked, boy. They announced 2 matches, and I don't know if they've got time for anything other than that. The first match is Legado del Fantasma versus Isaiah Swerve Scott and Breezango in a 6-man street fight. Give me more of that, please. We had Isaiah Scott versus Santos Escobar last week, and that match did not end the way that it should have ended. Isaiah was dominating. He was flat out dominating. He took care of Joaquin and Raul coming out to the ring. He knocked them both to the back. And Santos had to do what good heel does, let's be honest. He loaded his mask and headbutted him and got the win. So we didn't get a satisfying finish on that match. And Breezango versus Raul and Wild and the Britam Brawlers at the pay-per-view, they've got, beef with Legado too. So to have this 6-man match, it only makes sense. Knowing that Santos is going to do what Santos does, they made it a street fight so that, there's no disqualification, there's no running away, there's no countouts, whatever. Let's get Let's put the kibosh on this feud here, on both of them at one time. So, my prediction for that match, Breezango are brand new champs. Scott has Escobar's number. That we've got to end with the victory being Breezango and Scott. The second match that they announced, William Regal comes out last week and says, okay, we need a new champion. He waits no time. We waste no time getting a new champion because we need one. We can't have another tournament to wait to have another champion. We can't have another, let's have a 20-man over-the-top battle royal or whatever. We can't do that. He says, okay, our champion needs to be the champion. He needs to be somebody that has the caliber of a champion. And what else do you do? But you take the 4 guys that are still on the NXT roster that are former champions in NXT and you put them in a match together. Not only do you put them in a match together, you put them in the first ever. I looked this up. Okay, I Googled. This is the first ever Fatal 4-Way Iron Man match. This is the first ever Iron Man match that has more than one competitor except for it being a tag match. So, kudos. I didn't see that coming. So we know that disqualifications aren't going to matter. So nobody's going to get a cheap victory by, being disqualified against and gaining a point that way. And he puts Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, Finn Balor, and Adam Cole in this match. Any one of them can walk away with this victory. Any one of them. And you can't complain about, the better guy should have won. Who's the better guy here? There isn't one. Adam Cole, longest reigning champion in history. Finn Balor, one of the people that you talk about being NXT champion. When you think about former NXT champions, you think about Finn Balor. He has to be one of them. You have Tommaso Ciampa, who never lost that title. He had to let go of that for injury. You have Johnny Gargano, who, he is, regardless of what he says, the heart and soul of NXT. Former North American champion, former world champion. You can't say that anybody that walks out with this victory didn't deserve it. And you asked me to pick. I'm wearing the DIY shirt. I got to pick Ciampa or Gargano. Either one of them can come out and win. We have the Wednesday night thing with Johnny Gargano. I'd like to see what he can do with this title run. We have Tommaso Ciampa, who just came back last week from being gone for 2 months, and he's vicious now. We've got the black heart Tommaso Ciampa back. Finn Balor, he's been here, but honestly, he needs to be the sharpening stone for everybody else. He's, that needs to be his role here. And Adam Cole just had the title. Just had it for 340 days. I don't see where he can do anything different than what he's already done. We don't see the Undisputed Era going for the tag titles anytime soon. We don't see Roddy Strong going after the North American title anytime soon. So having just Cole be the only champion with nothing going on with the other members other than this weird thing that we've got going with Killian Dane and Drake Maverick. I don't understand this at all, but there's got to be something there. We'll figure that out later. But yeah, I've got to go with Johnny or Tommaso coming out with the title here. And it needs to be decisive. It needs to be something where nobody can say, well, if I had just done this, I would have been the champion, not you. It needs to be something like, 6 to 1 to 1 to 1 or something like that. We need to have something like that happen. So that's going to do it for this episode. I am going to put a little note here. If something amazing happens at Payback tomorrow night, because I'm filming this on Saturday, so if something amazing comes out happens on Payback, I'll probably do another episode. We'll call it like episode 3.5 or something, where I will just talk about whatever happened at Payback, because I don't want to wait another week to talk about it. If we see something like the reveal of Retribution, or if some other NXT star makes their debut or something, we'll talk about that. But other than that, we will see you again next week. So remember, we are NXT. Thank you.